Have you ever wondered how a simple trade dispute could spiral into a full-blown war that would change the course of a nation's history forever? That's exactly what happened in 19th century China, and it all started with a cup of tea, or rather, millions of cups of tea. In the early 1800s, Britain was obsessed with Chinese goods. We're talking tea, silk, and porcelain. The problem, China wasn't buying much from Britain in return. This created a massive trade deficit for the British. Imagine spending all your money at your favorite store, but they never buy anything from you. That's the situation Britain was in, and they were losing a lot of silver. So the British came up with a plan, a really destructive one. They decided to sell something that they knew would be highly addictive and in high demand. Opium, grown in British-controlled India. This drug was smuggled into China in massive quantities. The plan worked a little too well. Opium addiction spread like wildfire, causing immense social and economic chaos. Families were torn apart, and the Chinese economy was drained of its silver, which was now flowing back to Britain. The Qing dynasty government couldn't just stand by and watch this happen. They saw their country being poisoned. In 1839, a determined and incorruptible official named Lin Zexu was sent to Canton, the main port for foreign trade, with a mission: stop the opium trade. Lin was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He demanded that foreign merchants hand over all their opium. When they hesitated, he blockaded their factories. Eventually, he confiscated and destroyed over 20,000 chests of opium nuts, about 1,400 tons. He publicly burned it, sending a powerful message to the British. Well, that message was received loud and clear in London, but not in the way Lin Zexu had hoped. The British merchants, furious about their lost property, lobbied the government. They argued this was an insult to British honor and a threat to free trade. So, Britain decided to respond with force. They sent a fleet of modern warships and well-equipped soldiers to China. This was the start of the First Opium War. The war, from 1839 to 1842, was a complete mismatch. The British had steam-powered gunboats, advanced cannons, and modern rifles. The Qing military, on the other hand, was still using traditional weapons and tactics. They were brave, but simply outgunned and outmaneuvered. British forces easily captured key coastal cities and sailed up the Yangtze River, threatening the heart of the empire. The Qing court had no choice but to surrender. The defeat led to the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. This was the first of what China would later call the Unequal treaties. The terms were harsh. China had to pay a huge sum of money to Britain to cover the cost of the destroyed opium and the war itself. They were forced to open 5 ports that include in the major cities of Canton and Shanghai to foreign trade. And perhaps most significantly, they had to cede the island of Hong Kong to Britain. For the British, it was a major victory. For China, it was a national humiliation. But the story doesn't end there. You might think one war would be enough, but the British and other Western powers wanted more. They wanted even greater access to the vast Chinese market and more diplomatic privilege. The excuse for a second war came in 1856 with the Arrow incident. Chinese officials boarded a ship called the Arrow, which they believed was involved in piracy. The British claimed the ship was registered in Hong Kong and that the Chinese had insulted the British flag. It was a flimsy pretext, but it was enough. This time, Britain was joined by France, who had their own grievances. So began the Second Opium War, also known as the Arrow War. Once again, the Allied forces were technologically superior. They captured Canton, sailed north, and even marched on the capital, Peking, which we now know as Beijing. In a particularly brutal act, they looted and burned the magnificent Old Summer Palace, a complex of palaces and gardens that was a treasure of Chinese art and architecture. This second defeat was even more devastating for China. It resulted in the Treaty of Nanking in 1858 and the Convention of Peking in 1860. These treaties piled on more demands. More ports were open to foreigners. Christian missionary activity was protected, and foreigners were allowed to travel freely throughout China. And, in a final, bitter twist, the opium trade, the very thing that started this whole conflict, was officially legalized. The consequences of the Opium Wars were profound and long-lasting. For China, this period marked the beginning of what is known as the Century of Humiliation. The wars exposed the deep-seated weakness of the ruling Qing dynasty and its inability to protect the nation from foreign aggression. This loss of prestige fueled massive internal rebellions, like the Taiping Rebellion, which further destabilized the country. The wars fundamentally changed China's relationship with the rest of the world. The old system, where China saw itself as the center of the world and controlled its interactions with foreigners, was shattered. It was replaced by a new order dictated by the Western powers through a series of unequal treaties. Foreign influence grew dramatically, not just in trade, but in politics and culture as well. The Opium Wars forced China onto a painful path of modernization and revolution that would shape its entire history for the next century and beyond. It's a powerful reminder of how global power dynamics can be built on trade, technology, and in this case, a tragically destructive drug. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you in the next video.